Chinese President Xi Jinping and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi have agreed that their countries are partners, not rivals, as they met on the sidelines of the SCO summit in Tianjin.
Mr. Modi saying New Delhi is committed to boosting ties with Beijing, while Mr. Xi said the two countries should be good neighbours who enable each other's success. The leaders also discussed the boundary question, with both expressing their commitment to a fair and reasonable resolution of the issue.
Well, for more, we are joined by Sumit Ganguly, a senior fellow of Hoover Institutions at Stanford University. Professor, thank you very much for joining us. So we heard plenty of warm words in Tianjin with the Chinese leader unveiling a 4-point plan to deepen ties between Beijing and Delhi. But with few tangible outcomes, how would you rate the summit?
Well, there is an old English expression, and it goes like this. It says, "Sweet words butter no parsnips." And that's exactly what we have here. These are mere words. The proof, then again, to use an old English expression, will lie in the pudding. And the pudding has not been baked yet. Consequently, we have to wait and see what transpires in the weeks and months ahead. These are pious statements, but they are bereft of substance.
Right. Speaking of substance, of course, one of the thorniest issues between the two sides remains the border issue. Mr. Modi has stressed the need for peace and stability there, yet we know that tens of thousands of troops remain at the border. What would meaningful border management look like, and why might this time be different?
Meaningful border management would involve confidence-building measures where both sides withdraw significant numbers of troops along the Himalayan border, where the Chinese PLA withdraws from areas that it came to occupy in the spring of 2020, when it made significant incursions in the Galwan Valley. It will also involve withdrawing troops from the tri-junction between Bhutan, India, and China at a place called the Doklam Plateau. These would be tangible steps towards de-escalation. In the absence thereof, all we have is basically, bluntly put, empty rhetoric.
Professor, we know that New Delhi has been wary of Beijing, but we also know now that it's exploring its options given what's happening with President Trump. So is this, in your view, going to be a tactical or a strategic embrace by India? I mean, I guess the question also is, how far is the Indian Prime Minister willing to go and risk ties with the US, which I guess date back to at least 5 American presidents?
You're exactly right on all counts. And to use your own language, I would say this is basically a tactical move and a tactical accommodation because of the precipitous decline in the relationship between the United States and India over the last couple of months, ostensibly about tariffs and about India's dependence on Russian oil. The real reason, as the New York Times pointed out in a lengthy article a day or so ago, that it really had to do with Modi's unwillingness to publicly or even privately in phone calls with Trump to concede that Trump had played this critical role in bringing about a ceasefire in early May between India and Pakistan. There is no evidence whatsoever that Trump played this critical role, but Trump wishes to be recognized as a peacemaker in the hope that this will be the first step towards the Nobel Peace Prize, which he so ardently craves. And Modi's categorical refusal to suggest that Trump played this vital catalytic role in bringing about a ceasefire between India and Pakistan has really gotten under Trump's skin.
Understood. We'll come back to that in a short bit, hopefully. I want to ask you about the big meetings today at the summit. Obviously, there's one between Narendra Modi and Vladimir Putin, and possibly a trilateral as well. With the Chinese president, I'm wondering what you expect to be top of the agenda. And again, I guess the question is, do you think we'll come away with actual agreements, be they economic or strategic, or, I don't know, just maybe a grand statement?
You will certainly hear grand statements, that's taken for granted, but most of these will be the repetition of various platitudes that we've heard from all three leaders about the importance of regional stability, the importance of a predictable, stable world order, and the like. You might see a small handful of agreements in the economic arena, but I do not see any fundamental changes in terms of their respective strategic postures.
Okay, but if such realignments do take shape, if they start to deepen, would they encourage other developing nations to maneuver more confidently outside Washington's orbit?
I don't think so, with the possible exception of, say, a country like Brazil, which has thumbed its nose under Lula against President Trump. The vast majority of countries, smaller countries in the global south, are much too vulnerable to American pressures and the weaponization of tariffs by Trump. He's even threatened the European countries with higher tariffs if they impose any kind of restrictions on major American technology companies. So this is clearly not about trade imbalances, but the use of tariffs for strategic and political ends. And smaller countries in the developing world are going to be acutely vulnerable. And I'm not sure that Russia, India, and China can provide them with enough of a buffer against the United States, biased statements notwithstanding.
Okay, Professor, China and Russia, I've been told, will come away with, at the very least, optical wins from the SCO summit. But I'm also hearing that Pakistan is a big beneficiary because Islamabad understood Trump better, understood his approach to foreign policy better, and did things like saying it would nominate him for the Nobel Peace Prize. Now, is there some truth in that?
I don't know how sincere the Pakistanis were in terms of nominating him for the Nobel Peace Prize. But again, as you point out correctly, it was extraordinarily dexterous, extraordinarily adroit on the part of the Pakistanis to nominate him for the Nobel Peace Prize, and which is why General Asim Munir, the Chief of Staff of the Pakistan Army, got invited for a private lunch to the White House, no less.
All right, Professor Ganguly, we'll have to leave it there for now, but thank you very much for your insight this morning. Sumit Ganguly, Senior Fellow at the Hoover Institution of Stanford University.